Palm, HTC, and more recently with Samsung. The Samsung case is more interesting because some of it is brazen intellectual property infringement, but with a twist, which I will come to. So here you have on the left is the Apple iPhone, and on the right is the Samsung Galaxy something. And as you can see, the size of the phone is quite similar, the color is quite similar. You see the thing on the top, and you see the button at the bottom, all very similar. And a lot of this relates to trade dress. Personally, I feel that there are infringements here. But if you go even further, look at, say, the phone icon on the left bottom. You could argue here, you know, if you want to have a phone icon, then obviously it will have a phone. But does it have to be diagonal? Does it have to have a green background? How do you explain out of that in a trade dress infringement suit? And the answer is you probably can't. And what you see here is a way by which Samsung, which has not been known for smartphones, able to leapfrog and suddenly be talked about. For instance, the Galaxy tablet is being talked about more than any of the other tablets because they've been able to use a lot of the Apple technology, but interestingly without license. Perhaps tomorrow they will come out with another phone where all these icons are changed, where the trade dress issue goes away. But by then they would have picked up some market share, some reputation, and they can move forward with a different phone, with a different trade dress, and still do well. But this really brings out a whole lot of issues which we need to be aware of. One is for a company like Apple in this space, it's doing well, it's number one, it's the darling of the world, it's making billions of dollars. If they then go and sue some competitor saying, sorry, you can't use my technology, they come across as being mean. And they probably turn away a lot of people who don't want to buy the iPhone or don't want to spend that kind of money and are very attracted to a Samsung phone that has almost the same thing. And so a company actually has to consider these factors when they decide, do we go and sue our competitors? The second issue is, can all of this IP be upheld? So when you file for patent applications, your competitors are looking at this. They're not sure, can these patents have value in the future? You don't know what the market is like. Some of these patents were applied for way back in 1997 when we hadn't thought of a smartphone at all. Then you look at the cost. You think this is not really novel, or you think this is obvious, it's not really patentable. But you don't want to spend the time, you don't want to spend the money, you're not sure this patent is going to be of any use anyway, so you don't oppose it. And later on this patent comes up, you decide, let's go ahead and use this technology because we think that in a lawsuit we'll be able to prove that this is not really patentable. So that's another issue as to why you see this happening. The third issue is that often when you have a case filed and when you have a competitor who's used this kind of technology, it's happened after a licensing negotiation has broken down, where the IP owner has asked for more than the IP user wants to pay for. And in the technology world, you see a very complex network of cross-licensing. So A has some technology, B has some technology, C has some technology. They're all licensing each other so that they can all use the technology and produce competing products. And often when this situation arises, it's because the negotiation has broken down, and they use litigation as a tool to get better terms, either during the litigation, when one side suddenly realizes, I think we are on shaky ground, or after the litigation, if you lose. And then you also find there are different strategies for different countries. So you do see some phones which have some features in one country, but not features in another country. because the IP owner has not secured the IP in that other country. Once again, you're getting IP in 1 year, and you're not sure when you're going to use that IP, if you're ever going to use that IP, and 10 years later, you suddenly find that IP has become valuable, but you don't have protection in another country. So that is another factor that you will see. And then I think the biggest issue here is new standards. So you have a company that comes out with a new product and sets a new standard, and everyone wants to use that standard. But what if that company decides we are not going to license, we are going to keep that standard for ourselves and for our product only, and if you want it, you've got to use our product. So there you have some kind of a public policy issue, because the world has moved to a new standard, and the world is hungry for more products with that standard, but the IP is not being licensed. So these are some of the issues that you will find in a case like this. And it's, while some aspects of this case is straightforward infringement, a lot of it deals more with the issues that I discussed. So I think there are issues relating to harmonization here as well, particularly the public policy issue of what happens if a company refuses to license its intellectual property to competitors because the world is hungry to use that IP. I'll move on to the second case. This is the Winklevoss Facebook case. And how many of you have seen the movie The Social Network? Okay, that's a better percentage this time. So what happened here, I'll give you a little history. So the Winklevoss brothers and Mark Zuckerberg were all in Harvard together. They were all students in Harvard. And these brothers decided that they wanted to set up a social networking site, which was then called Harvard Connect. And it was basically about Harvard students connecting to each other in a similar way to Facebook. And they went to Mark Zuckerberg and said, we don't have the technical ability to do this. We would like you to develop the code. And they told him a fair bit about what their ideas were, what was the basis for the project, and so on. And he agreed to take this on. Most of it is done verbally. Some of it, there are email correspondence. There is no written contract, no services agreement saying I will do this for a particular fee and this is what I will get. And what